Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the PowerTalk Show powered by Business Talks Weekly. Our guest today is the Chief Empowerment Officer at Mutual Prosperity, and he is the creator of the registered sync method, John Taylor McEntire. John, welcome to the PowerTalk Show.
Thank you so much, Navin. How are you doing?
I am good, John. Thank you. John, what really is the sync method?
So I have worked for 35 years around the world, and my work in a global context actually started when I was a youth. So I had traveled to 19 countries in all 50 states by the time I was age 22, and had some other activities that were related to having a whole bunch of people in our house all the time that were from different countries. So that got me interested in culture and in understanding different languages and being interested in trying to help people unify things. So the activities that I did around the world were related to what's called technology transfer. So I worked for many different universities, national laboratories, foundations that would fund research. And I would look at those research results and determine if they were something that could become a product or a service. And if they could become a product or a service, I had to get the resources to be able to create a prototype for it, some type of demonstration model so that we could get a company or an entrepreneur to be interested in those technologies. So throughout those 35 years, I've been able to be involved with the development and creation of hundreds of startup companies in various different fields. And basically, this helped me understand not just the cultural landscape, but also the technical landscape of different things. Um, my last activity in this technology transfer realm was when I was in Doha, Qatar, and I worked for the Qatar Foundation for 10 years. And under the Qatar Foundation, I managed the intellectual property for 8 universities, 3 national laboratories, and 2 research hospitals, and basically helped shape the country's development of an innovation ecosystem to help with the development of new economic development activities within the region.
That's
So
very interesting,
what
John.
I do now is I help leaders who have just been hired or promoted to a senior position. So they become a senior vice president, an executive vice president, or a COO, and I help them move from where they were maybe dealing with 10 to 20 people in their team, and now they have hundreds of people on their team, which crosses cultural boundaries, time zones, countries, and the sort. So basically, they feel lost, and they all of a sudden, what got them to that point is not going to get them to the next level. So they need some help in understanding how to deal with all that chaos that comes from having a brand new team that maybe doesn't trust them and doesn't help them out. You asked about the sync method. Sync is synchronize. I is yourself, and is naturally within your community is the C. And it's this toolkit that I've gathered over this 35 years of working with all these different cultures and helping people synchronize together and helping leaders get buy-in from their teams.
That's really interesting, and thank you so much, John, for sharing that background with us. So, with sync method, who are you actually targeting? Is it only for companies, or will it also be used by individuals?
It's a very good question. Thanks for that. It's really, it is meant for companies and leaders in companies, but it's meant for anybody who wants to become a leader. So part of my own development in regards to putting the sync method together is I've gone through my own coaching programs, having people coach me. And one of my coaches was Jack Canfield, who is noted for the Chicken Soup for the Soul series and also the Success Principles. And, I became a Success Principles methodology trainer, and have worked with Jack in regards to that. And that is really the part that talks about yourself or personalizing things. That's the success principles is a key component of that. But it's basically, how do you become a leader that can take care of things? The synchronized part comes from my activity having worked in Japan for 7 years and dealing with the Japanese consensus building aspects. When it comes to Kaizen, which is continual improvement, when it comes to Six Sigma, all these different things are based off of Japanese consensus building. And that helped me understand that somehow we need to get people to work together. The Western or American way of top down isn't working anymore. And we need to make sure that people feel like they're bought into it. And so when you have that consensus type feeling and people feel that they're able to add value in there, then they're much more willing to give in to that. But that's the sync method is really meant for anybody who wants to sharpen their own leadership skills and then take care of teams. And this is not just companies, but it could be people in churches, in mosques, in political parties, in schools, school boards, anybody who feels like they need to pull a team together and get everybody on the same page.
Absolutely. So, are you planning, John, to build up an LMS model where you can publish your content on website and run on a subscription-based model where everybody can sign, download, and go through your platform and method?
Yeah, so thanks again for that question. So yes, I have coaching programs, and I'm right now in the throes of dealing with similar to what Jack Canfield did with his trainings. How do I have a train the trainer type situation? And basically I will allow there to be franchises within different areas of the world to be able to utilize these same tool set in those different places. One of the main things that I see in regards to innovation and entrepreneurship is that, and this really goes for your work in Dubai and in other places that are very innovative. With my work with all these different startup companies, of course, many startups fail over the years, but those ones that actually succeed, they sometimes get bought out by a larger company. And so this acquisition, this merger and acquisition type category has always made me a little bit frustrated. And the reason is because these groups that have these very tight knit teams, and they've come up with something very innovative, and it's solving problems, and it's doing it in a very innovative way, and they've built their team from initial 4 to 5 people, and now they're hundreds of people, maybe thousands of people, and then they get bought out. And the thing is that the founders, they usually do really well in these mergers and acquisitions. They get bought out and they do well. But the people who are on their team that also help that company go forward, but they missed the mark where they could actually get a big pot of shares or whatever, those people kind of get lost in the wash. And what I mean by that is that they will this larger company absorbs this smaller company, and what often happens is that at the time that acquisition takes place, the stock just skyrockets, and that's a great thing for everybody. But it tends to be that large company doesn't really know what to do with that smaller entity, and they may have really good reasons to make sure they take care of that group because they like the innovation that's coming from it. But what happens inside the company, if it's not handled well, is that you have these antibodies, these people who are jealous of these people here, and they don't want to have them have any attention. And so all of a sudden, this gets eaten alive, and then these people, slowly but surely, they end up leaving the company. So there's a lot of loss there individually for those people, but really the value should be increasing. But what happens is that oftentimes that skyrocketing stock in 4 to 5 years, because nothing has happened with that innovation, it goes down lower than what it was originally. And so there's just been a lot of lost wealth, a lot of lost ingenuity. And that's something that I'd like to make sure doesn't happen. So one of the services I provide is what's called a Nemawashi Center. Nemawashi is a Japanese term, and what it means is ne is root, and mawasu is to turn around the roots. So if you know the Japanese bonsai tree, the
Yeah.
small trees and everything, and they're just really beautiful how they put them together and they wire them and they're always clipping and pruning them. And everybody thinks that what's done on the outside is really important, and it is, but they also do stuff inside the roots. So they're digging around the roots, and they give the roots the ability to breathe and the ability to grow. And so it makes the roots stronger, which makes the tree stronger. And then when they're getting ready to transplant that tree from one pot to another pot or plot, they take soil from that new place, bring it into the old, they let it ruminate, they let it sit there for a while. And then once it's had a chance to really adjust, then you move it to the next place, and that transfer is less traumatic. So my goal is to help these two companies who have different missions and visions. Let's rejigger that mission and vision and bring it into one so that everybody feels like they're part of that whole, that people have what I talk about with leaders. They need to make sure that they give people not just a puzzle piece that fits in the slot that they want it to do. They need to give margin around that puzzle piece so that person grows into it. So everybody dovetails together, and then you make something very beautiful and very ingenious that brings that innovation idea to continue going for a long time.
Wow, that's very interesting. And the analogy about the bonsai, it's actually very interesting in when you put it into business. So, John, what is your vision? What are you planning for the next 5 years?
So the next 5 years is that Nemawasi Center that I told you about. I plan on having three of those myself. One will be in the US, probably in Florida or California. One will be in Japan, either Tokyo or Kyoto. And then my wife is Japanese, but her favorite place to travel to is actually Italy. And so one will be in Sicily. And so that's my goal, is to have three of those. But then I will be franchising out that same idea. Because the concept is that these centers will be very Zen-like. So it'll be these nice Zen Japanese gardens and Japanese bungalows that people will stay in, and then have facilities for the big meeting spaces and making sure that we can get all these teams together in full mode. But they'll have also the regular spa type facilities and everything. But these teams will be there for like a week or two to really try to mesh together those two things. So that's a big goal. In 10 years, I plan on having those three plus others that I would be franchising out. The other part of this is to have the franchising of the sync method itself and the training there go out to other parts of the world. I'm a professional speaker, and so I speak, and I will continue doing that. But in order to get this message out there about these puzzle pieces and making sure that leaders are learning how to work with those puzzle pieces in a way that makes everybody want to gel together and excel. That's the goal. My colors in my company are purple, and that happens to be my favorite color. But as I think about it, in the US, we have red and blue, okay? And so it's very politically harsh right now in the US. And I think the whole world is feeling this tension where there's so much, us versus them type of mentality. And I believe that people are more alike than they are different. And that somehow we need to get people thinking about the commonness and what is common among us rather than what is different. And then it's those differences are what makes us beautiful. And so we need to bring those things out. So the whole goal is to bring that across, like my company's name is Mutual Prosperity, to everybody. Mutual prosperity means that nobody is going to be the strong winner. Everybody's going to win together. And we don't want there to be these big divides, in regards to negotiations. I've done thousands of negotiations in my career. And one of the things that people say that they really appreciate about me is that they never felt like somebody was getting an advantage over them, and that they felt that it was really a team sport and that we were working together. So that's the goal, and that's all the goals there. But it's that main thing of getting people to be unified and understand each other better, which I think brings in better business aspects and more prosperity.
Absolutely. And that's very interesting, and wishing you all the luck in building these centers, John. What is one lesson that you learned or that you received that changed your perspective towards business and personal life?
Well, so as I was working for others along my career for 35 years, I found it very easy to climb up the ladder. And when I started with my company several years ago, hit a wall. And that wall was that all of a sudden, um, I didn't understand why I was struggling with this new entrepreneurial bent, although I'd done entrepreneurial things in a leadership role and such. Having this new company, I hit this wall. And what I learned was that ultimately there was some past childhood trauma that came up in a dream. And the first trauma was when I was 2.5, and then 5 and 6 and 8 and 9, and there was all these different things that came up. And what happened was that it made me into a people pleaser and a perfectionist, and also somebody who didn't really think I had very much value. And as I was climbing up the ladder in these different organizations, I was actually excelling because all I had to do was understand what my boss or my boss's boss needed. And as long as I knew that, then I could excel, because that's just what I was made to do, is to please people. And so when I came to a point where I was my boss, I didn't know if I trusted my boss, okay? And I didn't know if my boss knew what he was doing. And so there was this rejiggering of my own mission, my own vision that I had to go through. And that's come about with me working with dozens of coaches for the last 5 or 6 years. And each one of those coaches has taken me to a next level. And then it was other coaches that actually helped me do breakthroughs in regards to this trauma that I had endured from, my parents and other matters. And so I learned that by working with coaches, I was able to get to higher levels of understanding, higher levels of performance, and getting over what I was able to do. So we're having this discussion right now. And a couple of years ago, I could not have this discussion. I was not able to talk about, the good, the bad, or the ugly in my life. And that came back from that trauma. And so having gone through um, and having that dream after having talking with some coaches, I realized that was what was holding me back. And having had people to guide and direct me, having mentors and coaches was what really helped me go to the next level. And so I'm just a big proponent of coaches because I've had it help me in my career, but I've seen it also help many people in their careers. So that's what I would say, is that, at times when things are tough and we don't know exactly where we should be going, we have this gut instinct that tells us something. We need to recognize what that gut feeling is, that intuition. And I'm a big proponent of intuition. My jobs throughout my career have all come from an intuition moment. But it's how do we deal with that intuition in regards to what weaknesses we feel in ourselves, and that little voices that tell us that we're not good enough or whatnot. How do we get those out of our heads is what's really important. And that's been very valuable for me.
Intuition actually guides you to make better decisions as well. Thank you so much, John. Thank you so much for giving us time and having this conversation with us. It was a delightful conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really enjoy your show.